Those who don't know me, I used to own a chain called Rick Johnson Auto and Tires here locally in Southwest Florida. But I'm not going to start there. I'm going to start, how I got here in my life. I was born in Chesapeake, Virginia. So I was raised in Virginia. I was raised in Virginia Beach, Virginia. My father was a truck driver. My mother was a RN nurse. She worked ICU most of the time. As I was growing up, I didn't realize that my father was a raging alcoholic. And I don't want y'all to think bad about my father because the story ends up well. So he's an alcoholic. So I grew up, and as I grew up more and more, I realized at 8, 9, and 10, my father just was in arguments all the time. It was constant. It was a real turmoil in our house, tremendous turmoil. I mean, it was very disappointing. My father never played ball with me. My father never played catch with me. My mother never played anything with me. I grew up with no support from my family whatsoever. Since we live, all our families from North Carolina, so we lived 200 miles away from there, so I had no support of any grandparents, no, cousins, nobody, because they're all in Carolina. I'm in Chesapeake, Virginia. My sister was older, and as soon as she could get married and get out of the house, she did. She left. And she's still with us. She's older, but she's still with us. So as I went on in my life, I got a paper route because I needed some money. And so I was a paper boy when I was 12, 13, and 14. I won an award, not award, but it's like a prize to go to Miami on a train, all the paper boys, if you sell a lot of subscriptions to the newspaper. And so I did. I won this award, so I went to Miami. I had to get permission from my parents, but they didn't say congratulations or anything. They gave me permission. I went to Miami. At the same time, I started playing pool. There was a pool hall that opened up, so I started playing pool. I was really good at it. I don't know why I was good at it, but I was good. I was bringing home trophies. Did my parents ever say, hey, good job or anything, or even come to see me at the pool? Disappointment after disappointment. You want to have some support from people around you, but they never come to see me, nor did they ever congratulate me for doing that. So at the same time, I'm in school. In the 6th grade, I was in band. I was a trumpet player. I got pretty good in the 6th grade because I got first chair, so I won all-city band. I don't know if anybody knows what all-city band is, but they take all the first chairs, they put them all together, play in an orchestra. It's a big thing. Parents never come, never congratulated me, nothing. Okay, now my father's still a raging alcoholic, so it's really hard to communicate with him, really difficult. So I'm tall, I tried basketball, but I like baseball. So I played 6 years of Little League, and the reason why I like baseball, the coach wanted me to be a catcher because I was really tall, so I was the only one that could throw it to second base. I could get the ball there. So I played 6 years. Now, you know how many games in baseball you play? There's a lot every year. Parents never come to one, not one. So as fast as I could get out of the house, I left at 18. And my father had quit being a truck driver, and he had opened a tire and automotive, not a tire, I say tire automotive, it turned into that, but it was a Texaco service station. So I had a part-time job down there working at a Texaco service station, pumping gas, changing oil, learning how to change brakes, learning how to change spark plugs, learning everything about a car. Did my father teach me any of that? No, none. Taught myself. Or I watched somebody else do it. The Lord has blessed me with many things. He's blessed me. I could see somebody do it one time, and I could do it. And plus, I'm mechanically inclined, so I could tear anything apart, and I could put it back together. It's not very good when your wife hands you a toaster, and you got to tear it apart and miss your favorite program on TV because you're playing with this toaster. But so I was raised in that, but me and him had a tumultuous relationship, hard. He'd always tell me that I would never amount to nothing. He'd come up to me and say that it was terrible, I was stupid, there was no way I was ever going to be anything in my life, that everything that I had, I owed to him. Okay? So they don't really build up, like JD says, esteem. You don't really get a lot of, you're not getting any support. So you have to turn to yourself. And when I was 15, I got saved, March 15, 1970. And in April 20th, 1970, I got baptized. Father never come to that. In fact, my father never come to church. I was going to church, and I was in all that, and but as soon as I turned 18, I left over a big argument with my father. I said, man, I've got nothing to do with you. I'm gone. So I started working at a pizza restaurant and started working as a dishwasher. Then I made cook, and then it made me a manager. And then that pizza chain. My daddy, at the same time, is building a big tire chain in Chesapeake, Virginia called Henry Johnson Tire. He built it up to 23 locations. So I'm in the pizza business, and it's called Milton's Pizza, and there's 5 of us, and we're building a big chain. We had like 20 locations. It was a really big chain. Thinking I was really moving, I'm really moving. The guy sold out. He was a Greek. He sold out. The first thing the new owners did was fire the top 5. Well, he was the 5th, but I mean, he's the top guy. Fired 4 people. I was one of them. Failure. I'd spent all that time, and now I was nowhere. I was at the bottom. So my father found out about it, so he come by and said, hey, why don't you come back to work for me? I got a successful tire business. I said, I'm not coming back to work for you. You know, I'm 25 years old. I'm still angry. I'm still just upset. So I looked at him. I said, you know what? I'm going to open my own restaurant. And I said, since you drove a truck for 27 years, what city would you open a restaurant in? He said, Wilmington, North Carolina. I had never been to Wilmington. Wilmington's the last city in North Carolina, right before South Carolina. It's right on the ocean. Didn't have any relatives there, didn't know nobody there. The next day, I packed up a U-Haul, left my apartment, packed it up, and went to Wilmington, North Carolina. I learned, don't have Google back then, don't have internet, so go to a library to learn how to put together a performance statement. I never went to college. Well, that's kind of a lie. I went to 6 months. And why I quit was because I asked the teacher when she was going to teach me how to make $1 million. And just like that, everybody in class laughed. I got up and left. That was my last day of college. So I'm in Wilmington, 25 years old. I have to learn how to put a performance statement together called a pro forma to go to banks. One of the special gifts that I've been given is I can borrow money. I don't know why, but I can borrow money. So I go to 8 banks. 7 banks told me no. 1 bank told me yes and lent me $60,000, but I needed $85,000. Now, this is back in 1980, okay? So I knew what I needed to open a restaurant. So the guy who sells restaurant equipment that I got to know in Milton's Pizza told me, he said, listen, I got some guy over here who can lend you the money, but, you got to pay him back. You got to pay him back. Well, I learned later that he was part of a loan sharking business, but I needed the money, so I borrowed $25,000. They deducted the interest off of that, which was $7,000, which is terrible. So I only got 18, and he made me write out 52 checks for the payment for every week, and he said, don't let them bounce. So I didn't let them bounce. I was pretty scared of this guy, but I needed the money. So I needed equipment. So I went to a Greek that I knew had a whole restaurant equipment set sitting in his warehouse. I went in there and said, listen, I need to buy this, and I'm opening a restaurant in Wilmington, North Carolina. How much you give it to me for? He said, $50,000. I said, I got $18,000. That's all I got. I got $18,000. I'll give you $18,000 for it. He said, no way. Daddy, get out of here. So I left, went to the bank, got $18,000 in 20s, put them in a grocery bag, back in the bags, put them in a grocery bag, shook it up really hard, went into his office. He said, you got my $50,000? I said, no. I put up the $20 all over his desk, flowing everywhere. He said, how much is here? I said, $18,000. He shuffled it all, put it in the safe. He said, sold. That's how you make a deal, because I needed a deal. I didn't have a job. I'm 250 miles away from home. I didn't know nobody, so I had to get this done. So about 3 months later, we opened up the restaurant, and it was very successful. Now, I was going to church. It was Pine Valley Baptist Church in Wilmington. It was Rainy River Baptist Church in Chesapeake, Virginia. I was going to church, and I was doing what I was supposed to do. But as I built the second restaurant, and as I built the third restaurant, and I turned 27. And as I built the fourth restaurant, turning 28, I started getting a lot of money. And I'm young. I'm in my 20s. I did not understand how to handle big money. So I'm riding around in a brand new red Mercedes-Benz, and I'm drinking Dom Perignon in the refrigerator. I mean, I'm just living the high life, but I forgot about God. Stopped praying, stopped reading my Bible, stopped tithing, stopped everything. So what did God do? Because, in the Bible, it's but God is 46 times in the Bible. But God comes in and said, I'm giving you all this, and now you forget about me? So what he did was he took 3 restaurants away. They did terrible, failed, was a failure, but had 2, and I was still running them, and I was starting to come back, make a little bit of money. And my father come down to visit me. He said, why don't you come back to work for me? We'll sell this restaurants. So I always wanted a relationship with my father, no matter how bad he had been. I wanted a relationship with him. It was what my heart was. So I went back. In 1985, I went back to him, sold 2 restaurants to a partner of mine, and built a house in Chesapeake, Virginia. Got finished with the house, and my father didn't tell anybody. He had 18 tire stores. He sold the business. Didn't tell my mama. My mama, she just died in 2017. She lived to be 90. And she always said, he never told me. He never told nobody. He just sold the business. And first thing they did, they come to me, and they said, you can run a tire store. Well, I didn't want to run a tire store. I wanted to own them. I mean, I'm not going to work at a tire store. I'm not going to work at a restaurant. I want to own them. So my father went to Naples, and we've been coming to Naples since '65. So I really was familiar with Naples as a little kid coming to Naples. So he called me up, and you think I would never talk to him again, right? He calls me up and says, listen, I've opened up a tire store down here. Now, remember, my father's getting older now. He was 69 back then. Yeah, 68 or 69 back then. So that's not old to us. Not old to me. I just turned 68, so it's not really that old. But he was 69. So he asked me, hey, come on down. I think I can open a second tire store, and we'll open up wholesale business. Well, I said, okay, I'll come down. So I come down to Naples in 1985, right at 1986, and started running a wholesale business. But we are terrible wholesalers, horrible wholesalers. We're retailers. I'm a retailer. I'm not a wholesaler. So we lost a bunch of money in wholesaling. So my father was getting older, and I guess I was paying my dues for maybe saying ugly words to my father, and because, you've got to respect your mother and father regardless of what they say, because that's what the Bible says. So I didn't know what God was up to, but I wasn't going to fail God. I wasn't going to leave him anymore. I'm sticking right by him. So I married this woman. That's how I come down to Naples, found a woman, married her. We got 2 kids. And during the 90s, my father lowered my pay 6 times because he said the business wasn't doing well. So me and her and my mother had convinced my wife to come to work for us. And so we were struggling. We had 2 kids, and it was really hard to make ends meet. So in 1997, I went to 5 Council after talking to my wife and said, I got to do something. And so the 5 councils, it's kind of a miracle. The 5 councils all told me a very similar thing. Give him 3 choices. Number 1, give me the 2 stores, I'll pay you for them monthly. We'll split the 2 stores, and I'll run it the way I want to run it, and you run it the way you run it. Now, he's 79 years old now. So, 3rd choice is leave him and start your own business. So, I told my father. My father said, I'll give you the 2 stores. I said, okay. Council said 90 days, so I said 90 days. He said, okay, 90 days. 90 days come up September 20th, 1997. Went to my father. He said, no, it's not time. Not time. It's 90 days. You promised. You said you're going to do it. He said, no, I ain't going to do this. I'm not going to do it. So I went back to the council. What did the council say? The council says, well, you got to leave him. Now, we have 2 kids, as I mentioned, and they're boys, and they eat a lot. And we have a house, and we have a mortgage. We have everything everybody else has got. And we got $4,000 to our name that we can scrape up. But we quit. We quit on September 27, 1997, because we were going to obey the counsel. And the Bible says, with many counsel you'll find safety. And if you go against counsel, bad things happen. You just have to look up Rehoboam. Rehoboam was the son of King David. You look him up and find out he went against counsel and find out how bad things happened to him. You always obey the counsel. Don't go, I always told people, listen, don't go take counsel if you ain't going to listen to them. That's the worst thing. Don't just go out of ignorance and don't take their counsel. Don't do anything. But if you take counsel, listen to them. So we quit. So, I didn't have a vehicle either because I was driving a company truck. So we only had one car, my wife's car. No jobs. Neither one of us had a job because we both quit. So on Saturday, you know what I did? I bought a brand new truck with no job. People ask me, why'd you do it? I'm risk tolerant. I can take a lot of risk. I'm willing to, I don't gamble because I hate gambling. But I'm kind of like the Texas Hold'em. You just push it all in the middle. Just keep pushing in the middle. You lose it. Okay, come up with push it all in the middle. Well, that's me with life. I'm very risk tolerant. So what I did next was we said we're going to go into the pizza business or we're going to go into the tire business. So we found 3 locations right away in the next couple of days to build a pizza business and 3 strip centers. And we found 2 tire stores that were closed that we could just go right in. Well, in Revelations 3, it says, God closes doors that you cannot open, and he opens doors that you cannot close. Okay? And here is the but God. We have no job. We have nothing. I put a pro forma statement together, went to 8 banks again. 7 turned me down, but 1 gave me a second mortgage on my home for $60,000 in 1997. So we got the loan. He didn't know I didn't have a job either. If they don't ask you, you don't tell them. It's not a lie. If they're not asking, so I'm not giving up any information unless they're asking a point-blank question. So I got the $60,000, and that's really all I need to open a tire store. Well, God shut the door on the 3 restaurants. Totally. They said, no, we don't want restaurants going in here, whatever. My wife can testify to it. It was kind of really weird. We just couldn't do anything with it. They wouldn't accept our calls. And the other 1 tire stores, they didn't want to do anything with it at that time. But 1, Green Boulevard, 4020 Green Boulevard, but a guy by the name of Canistracci had just lost his tenant, was Tire Kingdom. Tire Kingdom had built a brand new store out on Golden Gate Parkway in 1997. They moved there. So they'd been at this particular store 14 years, and it was kind of off season. So nobody really knew that Tire Kingdom had moved. So everybody had been going there for tires and auto repair. And we walked in there, and it was dirty. Now, I'm blue collar, and I could be around a lot of dirt, but this place was filthy. So it took me and my wife and my 2 boys got in there. We cleaned the whole place out, and I'm not a carpenter. I did all the carpentry work in there. It's been since, if you'd ever seen Green Boulevard, the carpentry work was terrible. But it looked okay. It was okay, but nothing matched, and, anyway. So on November the 4th, we opened our doors the first day. And that was 38 days later. To get a loan, to obey God, just keep going. You work like it's all up to you, and you pray like it's all up to God. That's how you do it. But you get out there and just do it, and you just continue to do it and continue to do it, Now, didn't speak to my father at all or my mother. I'm in the business, and all of a sudden, I forgot that we started running. I had to advertise, but I didn't really have any money. So, back then it was only really newspaper and radio. So I come up with this idea. I said, you know what? I'm going to run 1-inch ads, 1-inch square ads, black ad with white print, and I'm going to say, where is Rick Johnson? because I'd been down there 13 years, and a lot of people had met me, and a lot of people, I'd worked on a lot of cars, and I'd done a lot of things with cars, and I had a big customer base, my father's, excuse me, but I said, they're going to want to know where I am. And the people who don't know me, they're going to say, who I am, or who are you? So I ran that for 3 weeks. And I had just enough money to run a radio spots on 2 stations, a country and a rock. And I ran a full-page ad in the newspaper saying, Rick Johnson Auto and Tire opened on that weekend right past, November the 4th. And we did phenomenal. I was working the cars, working the front, working the books at night. It takes a lot of work. You just got to work. People say, well, why do you have all this stuff? You got to work at it. You got to work at it. You got to get up early in the morning. You got to work all day long. You got to come home, eat, and do the books. That's life, and you got to do that over and over and over and over. You don't quit. It's just a no quit, because I'm in it to win it. And if the Lord's behind you, you're going to win it. So we built that store up. Come April, my father turns 80, March 10th, 1998. He calls me up, first time I've heard from him. He says, hey, can I talk to you? I ain't got any really time, so how about tomorrow night? I think it was the night at 6 or 7 o'clock, right after we closed. I met with him. Him and my mama wanted to sell me the 2 tire stores. Father was 80. He could no longer do it. I knew he couldn't do it. He just didn't know he couldn't do it. So we made a deal. Now, here's in the Bible, it says, honor your mother and father so it may go well with you and you have a long life. If you do that, God will keep his promises. So I made a deal with them that was a really good deal for them. I pay them so much money a month and absorb $320,000 worth of debt. I said, but if I do this, I'll pay you till the last one passes away. I'll put it in the contract. Last one passes away, then the rent stops, but I will get the property that I'm working outside of, which is Corporate Square, which I still own today. It's a big property in Corporate Square. So they agreed to that. Well, we had 3 stores. Thank God. And then 2 years later, I had a 4th store. I built a store on Bonita Beach Road. And I just kept going back to the banks, borrowing money. Then I was borrowing $500,000 to $700,000. But you have to have your books right, and you have to understand your books. Now I'm all self-taught. Never went to school. I know everything knows about a P&L, balance sheet. I can tell you everything about a tire and automobile business, right down to the valve stem, how much it costs, right down to how much it costs for nitrogen in a tire. I can tell you everything you want to know about it. Because if you want to be successful in your business, you don't leave it up to your attorneys or your accountants to tell you. You tell them. You tell them what it is and how it is. And that's what you do, because they don't know anything about your business. You leave it up to them, they'll destroy your business because they were never in business. They went to college for something else. They're not entrepreneurs. So me and my wife and finally got the kids, finally got them out of the house. Because they were eating us to terrible. One joined the Marines, and the other one started his own business, and he's up in Atlanta now. We grew to 7 stores, and from when I bought the tire stores from my father, after he turned 80, every day he told me he loved me. He had never told me he loved me up to that point. And until he passed away 6 years later, he told me he loved me every day. So he could see what I did without him. Because I didn't take any of his money. I didn't take anything from him. I just developed it with God. I just developed it. So, it all works in the end. You just got to keep focused, and you don't give up on people. You don't give up on the things that you love the most. You just keep going and going. And eventually, God works it out. So we built the tire business up to 14 stores. And starting about 2012 or 13, people were calling us wanting to buy us. And I'm not for sale. I got pictures on the wall. I got my refrigerators full. Not Dom Perignon anymore. So refrigerator's full, and We have 2 cars. We have everything we need. We're living okay, you know. We're still living in the same house. It was a 1,800 square foot house in Livingston Woods. Now, Livingston Woods is a fancy place now. When I moved in there, people were saying, "What the heck are you going all the way up there for?" That was in the 80s. They said, nobody lives up here. This is the sticks, which it was in 1986 and 7 and 90 and 88, back in the 80s and early 90s. So we were able to stay there and continue to build, and people kept coming to us wanting to buy us. I'm not for sale, I'm not for sale. Well, one guy was pretty persistent. Yeah, that's right. That's a good word, persistent. But he had been in the tire business too. He had sold his tire business to Tire Choice, and now he worked for Tire Choice. And he knew me because he knew my father. And he knew my father was, I'm 2nd generation. My son's 3rd generation in the tire business. So I told him, I don't want to sell. His name's Joe. I ain't selling Joe. He kept saying, well, we want to buy you. Build your own stores. Have an argument. Build your own stores, man. You and your brother had all the stores. You sold out, but just build your own stores here. Tire Choice has 1,200 locations. They got big bucks. Just build your stores. He said, no. We want to buy you. So he kept coming up with a dollar amount, but it wasn't big enough. It wasn't big enough for me to even be interested in. But by 2018, the number got very large. And it was getting really large. Now, I want y'all to understand, me and my wife only sold, this is how God blesses you. Because we took a chance on God back then and just believed in him and quit our jobs. So we went and started talking to investors and saying, this is the kind of money we can get because we're only going to sell our operations. We didn't sell our buildings and land. We only sold the Rick Johnson Auto and Tire operations. And that we didn't sell the name either. They had to get rid of the name in a year. They had to change it into Tire Choice. So my name wouldn't be, so they give terrible service at all. People wouldn't look down on me, because I wanted good service. I'm the $9.95 oil change guy. So they finally come to a number that was really a large number, way more than what my father sold his for. And we walked out in January 12th, 2019, operations only, closed the deal. But you know what God knew? He knew that COVID was coming in 2020. COVID would have really hurt me bad. I didn't know it, but I don't have over 100 employees. I didn't have 110 vendors anymore. And I certainly didn't have 60,000 customers, which is what I had. So I had none of that no more. So I wasn't getting hurt by that. So I could retire. I don't really have to work. But when you get to a point where you can work because you want to work, so that's what I do. So now what I do is I build tire stores for a living, and I build them on spec. I don't have anybody to lease them. I just build the tire store. And then I put a for lease sign out front of it because nobody ever did that for me or my father. Because I've been in it for over 50 years, and nobody's ever built a tire store saying, you want to lease my tire store? They'll build anything else, shopping centers and all kinds of stuff, but they never built tire stores. So we started with our first 3 and leased them out, boom, just like that. It was pretty phenomenal. You build a tire store, to go in, they lease them, and it's, I don't know if you know what a triple net lease is, but that means they pay for everything, whatever breaks, insurance, taxes, they pay for everything, and they just mail you a check every month, which is a good thing. So to this day, we are still in church 3 times a week. We still tithe properly and give offering, and we still read our Bibles, and we still sing, and we still do all those things and give an honor to God because he's the one who's got me here. And that's good. My father passed away, and it was an honor to be at his funeral, because we finally made up. And my mother had nothing but good things to say about me until she passed away in 2017. And I'd grown pretty good. She didn't see me sell, but I had a bunch of stores then. Now, you can ask me how many stores, what's the number store that I'm working on right now? Number 23. the same as my father's, the store I'm working on. It's up in Bradenton, and I've got them all up and down. I'm only working in the West Coast. I want to be able to drive to it. So anybody can do anything you want. You just have to be driven to do it. And the last time I spoke, people said, well, what's your secret? I said, listen, don't compare. I never compare myself to anybody else. Because people say, what about your competition? I got no competition. I don't care about Tire King, Tires Choice, Tires Plus, Discount Tire. I don't care about those guys. I don't care about any of those guys. They're no competition to me. I'm Rick Johnson Auto and Tire. They're going to come to me. This is how we present ourselves. It's like my friend here, Corey. He's comfort control system. He's got to think, I'm the best. Why go anywhere else? I don't care what the other guys are doing. So that's how your mindset has to be. You have to be to where you are going to be the best of the best, and you're going to compare yourself to yourself the next day and be better than what you were yesterday. And you keep doing that over and over and over and over. You don't compare yourself, oh, look at what this person's doing. It's a waste of time. Just what you're doing. And you start thinking out of the box all the time on what you can do to better yourself, what you can do to help other people, and what you can do to continue to grow like God wants you to grow. Because He wants you to be fruitful and multiply. That's what it says in the Bible. He wants you to be successful, And success comes in many things, not just money. Because let me tell you, money is just a tool. It's a tool in your shed. Your parents can tell you, go outside and pick up the leaves. You can pick them up one by one. It takes a long time. Or money can buy you a rake that you can rake the leaves. So money only makes things a little easier to do. But it shouldn't change you or define you at all. I'm still blue collar. That's where I was raised. That's it. That's me. I dress nice now, but, I'm still blue collar. I still can change tires. I still can change oil. I know I can change motors. That's because that's all I've done my whole life. So I'm telling you that you can be as great as you want to be. You just have to get in the game and just continue to do it over and over. One last thing I want to say to you is that I would have never met my wife, and when we met and were married, we didn't have two nickels to rub together. And the reason and how we met was at St. Matthew's house cooking them food. This is St. Matthew's house when there was just a little teeny fire station, right beside I think it's the Methodist Church on Airport Road, little teeny place, no kitchen, no nothing. So that's how we met. So we met serving the Lord, serving St. Matthew's house, and I was in St. Matthew's house I've been in there since 91. How many years is that? 31 years? Been involved with St. Matthew's house, because you never forget God, and you never forget the people, and you just go in there and you just want to serve. That's all you want to do, serve. Build, serve, sell tires, build buildings, do whatever. Whatever the Lord has for you to do, you just go out and do it. And forget about what everybody else tells you. Just forget about it. It's because, there's too many, like JD was saying, too many naysayers. Man, there's a whole bunch of people out there that tell you that you can't do it. I say, what do you mean you can't do it? You can do it. My mind says you can do it, so you should be able to do it. And you might stumble and fall, which I did many times. Many times there was no money in the bank. Many times, we're praying for so much money over the weekend, but God would supply. God would supply. We just continue on, and continue to build and continue to buy, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of tires, not knowing how they're going to be, because you got to sell them. You got to pay for your tires in about 90 days. So you got to sell them to pay the bill. Otherwise, they just sit in your warehouse, and my daddy used to call them black gold. So that's what they are. But you can't go down to the Kmart and trade in a tire for some milk. They ain't doing it. So you got to sell them. But that's what you got to do. You got to be risk. You got to know your business, and you got to be able to be, what everybody wants you to be to them, so you can serve them and serve them better than what you would serve yourself. Then you could be successful. Because success comes in many different flavors. You have a successful family. You have successful at church or at school. You can be successful in many things. It don't have to apply to money. But you can be successful and be all that people will be around. How did you ever do that? How did you ever do that? How did you ever do that? Because people still today come up to us and think that we were given a whole lot of money. That's how we got in business, but we didn't. It just didn't happen like that. That's not how it happened. That's not the way it was. And I could have given up on my father a long time ago, but I didn't, because that wasn't the right thing to do. Even though he got me really upset many, many times in my life, it just wasn't the right thing to do. So you never give up. And then good things will happen to you. And you'd be surprised at where you'll be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You'll be shocked at where you've been, because you took a direction and just did it. Thank y'all.